Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker is the amazing Heather Carlton. A genuine love for people and their unique cultures prompted this southern girl to live in a mud hut in West Africa, and then, in what may be the weirdest move of all time, a South Korean high-rise. Heather Carlton is an aspiring writer and speaker who wants to see people empowered to leave their fears behind and walk in freedom. She is a single mother of 4 who loves this beautiful city and the brilliant, amazing people who live here. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Heather Carlton. This is Fear to Freedom.
One of my favorite childhood books was The Monster at the End of This Book. On each page, Grover did everything in his power to get me to not turn the page. But the more glue, ropes, boards, and bricks he used, the more it made me want to turn that page. But you see, I grew up in a family that loved me, protected me, and highly encouraged page turning. My parents wanted me to succeed so much, they overcame every obstacle they ever faced, and that instilled in me a desire to do the same. This is one of my earliest memories of facing my fears. Birds, they were always a bit dodgy to me, but my dad knew that if I could just overcome that initial fear, then I would love them. So I observed them. Then I fed them, and eventually I loved them. Another page turned. When I entered middle school, something shifted. I adopted that new timid nature because I understood that there was a pecking order. And as long as I conformed and blended, then I felt like I would be just fine. But when I entered high school, everything shifted and I found my true colors. I grew bold and expressive, and I learned to start writing my own pages. Well, just so you know, I am aware that most female birds are dull and brown, but the analogy only goes so far, so just humor me with this one. After high school, after grad school, I spent 2 years in Burkina Faso, West Africa, where I lived in a mud hut and learned a tribal language. And the Maranse people, they shared their stories, their lives, and their culture with me. And these were some of the most physically and challenging days of my life, but these are pages in my story that I would never rewrite. And this is me in my next phase, coming in hot, one twig at a time. It was a crazy, chaotic time. I married a pastor. I had 4 babies within 5 years, and it was more than I can even think about at that moment. But 17 years in, and things changed. I found myself in a situation where I wasn't actually allowed to turn any more pages. That happened because I was just so busy mothering 4 little ones that I didn't even realize the bars being built around me. But when I looked up, I was caged. Finally, it took more strength and courage than I ever thought I possessed. It was the hardest thing that I ever did, and it almost broke me. My children hated me, the church rejected me, my own sense of torment, my own sense of failure tormented me, but in the end, I was free. And now, I'm finally free, and I can turn any page I want, but the voice in my head, the Grover, still says, "Oh no, you've turned another page! What are you doing? There's a monster at the end of this book!" Well, whatever, that's my Grover voice. On my worst days, it's hard to find my own voice, but on my best days, I feel the fear. Then, I let it go. I work hard to make sure that I tear down those lies that make me want to hide. And I understand that courage isn't just the absence of fear, it's feeling that fear and doing it anyway. My job is now to be the provider of my family. Provider? That's not a role I've ever had before, but When faced with that kind of challenge, you just rise to a new level of determination. One of the most paralyzing beliefs that I ever embraced as the wife of a minister was that I had to maintain this constant state of perfection. This belief, it kept me lonely and isolated in the midst of a crowd. But after my divorce, I found an entirely new flock of friends. They taught me how to share my struggles, and something incredible happened. Instead of rejecting me, they loved me and embraced me. And the most amazing provisions of hope, encouragement, and support came through. I kept turning those pages because my new community of friends helped me untie the ropes of fear. My parents came alongside me and they helped me pull out those nails that had held those pages shut. And now I have someone special in my life. And he reminds me just how beautiful it is to turn pages together. But even with all that support, I still felt like I'd lost my calling. But I'm just now starting to realize that it's those struggles that have actually made me into who I am. So I keep going every day. And sometimes we just find the perfect balance. All the stars align and everything is just as it should be. And I've been there too. I've loved those moments so much, but you can only sit on your perch for so long. Inevitably, something comes along and ruffles your feathers. External factors, they come in and they just happen. Recently, I experienced this in the form of a job loss. It's devastating. It's not a page I wanted turned, but I didn't have a choice. It turned for me. But whether my pages have turned unexpectedly or by my own choosing, the reality is that I get to decide how to respond. So when faced with the choice to sit and dine with fear or to break free and live and fly, then I want to choose freedom. You know, every decision in my life, it would be completely held in captivity by fear. But if I call fear out and I recognize it for the monster it is, then I have power over it. And then all that's left is lovable, furry, old me. And that's not so scary, is it?